Good afternoon and welcome to the Duluth Public Schools Committee of the Whole meeting for the month of March. And now I'll turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent Bonds. Thank you. But first I'd like to do roll call.
Member Banks.
Here.
Chair Eater.
Here.
Member Leffler Kemp is excused. Member Lofald.
Here.
I am here. Member Sadowski.
Here.
Member Williams.
Here.
Superintendent Magus.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Present.
Deputy Clerk Simone Zunich.
Here.
Executive Director of HR and Operations Severance.
Present.
Executive Assistant Shannon Brown.
Here.
And roll call has been done.
Now we'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Thank you, Chair. And good evening again, everyone. For our first presentation today under our strategic plan alignment under supporting every student, we have Cindy Miller, who is the Library Media Tech Content Specialist and District Computer Science Lead. And we have others who will introduce themselves as well. So I'll turn it over to Cindy, who's going to provide some information related to our Duluth Public Schools Computer Science Ed programming.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk today. I want to tell you about the people who are involved in computer science in our district and are here with us today. I am Cindy Miller, and I'm the computer science lead. That's a .2 position in the school district and is paid for through a grant through the Northern Lights Collaborative for Computing Education. Next to me today is Paul Schoenfeld from the Northern Lights Collaborative for Computing Education. He's a district support specialist, some coordinator. And also Danette Sebo is with us today too, who you know very well, I'm sure. And Peter Graves, I saw him sneak in the back. He's with us today too, and would be happy to answer any questions that you might have as well. Thank you. So Peter and Danette and I are the core team involved in this grant that came from the Northern Lights Collaborative. They are funded through through the University of Minnesota through a grant that is from the National Science Foundation. So those are our people, and we had presented to the Cow Group another time a couple years ago with Jen Rosado, and possibly you remember the Code and Go mice that we coded with, yeah. So I want to talk about how we started in the 2022-23 school year. There was an organization at St. Scholastica that was the kind of predecessor to the Northern Lights group, and they had a PD, evening PD outside of the contract time for teachers, art teachers, media science teachers, math teachers, and it was led by Paul and Jen Rosado and the team that was at that time at St. Scholastica. You can see the things listed here. We just kind of were introduced to computer science, and one point at the bottom of this slide is that Minnesota last year, during the last school year, was dead last. Minnesota was dead last in the high school computer science offerings in the country. There were 5 schools in the state of Minnesota that had a pathway to computer science, and several of those go through their CTE program, and I'm working on getting us added to that list. So we did projects through that CS for All work that we did with the group at St. Scholastica, using the Code and Go mice and doing some Scratch learning, and we have and these RVR robots that are here came to us last school year. No, this school year that they're using in middle school. So this is how it started. I'm going to skip ahead because I want to talk about where we are moving forward. So our CTE pathway, we've been working on building this pathway K-12. Our K-12 media specialists have been trained in Code Savvy, with Code Savvy and the Northern Lights Collaborative to use Hour of Code and CS Fundamentals and Unplugged Computer Science. And we did a computer science pilot in the elementary in the last school year. High school and middle school courses were added over the summer. We're working on revamping the 6th grade class that we offer that was called Computers class and now is called Computer Literacy. We added a 6th and 7th grade robotics and coding class that is an elective, a Computer Science 8 elective, and a Computer Science 10 class that is a required course. So this year, our goals, with the Northern Lights group, we are working with school districts all over northern Minnesota with the influence, with a focus, I guess, on Indian or Native American culture, integrating with computer science, making sure that we're inclusive and include special ed services in our computer science offerings. We have these goals. First, to rewrite that 6th grade class, to develop a scope and sequence, identify funding to sustain our computer science growth in our school district, and to use our district PDDs for computer science and technology learning. And I want to take a step here and talk about what's the difference between computer science and educational technology. So computer science is basically what a computer, how a computer works and how it does the things that it does. So for example, coding and coding to make a computer work, and the hardware and the parts that go into making a computer work. And educational technology is the things that you make using a computer. So educational technology might be making a slideshow, or students making a video to show what they know. That kind of thing is educational technology. Computer science is more about how computers do what they do, and also ties in computational thinking, which is thinking like a computer. So using a sequence of steps or an algorithm, or using loops to make a computer do what you want it to do. And so those are two different things. And this CS lead position that I'm in is only focusing on computer science. And I will continue with my slideshow. Here's two groups of teachers. This is groups of middle school. This is a group of middle school teachers with people from helpers that are teaching us from Northern Lights Collaborative. And this is a group, we have, is it 6 different school districts that we're working with in northern Minnesota? And that's in this room. We get together quarterly and learn from each other about building pathways for computer science. So this school year, we have a kindergarten through 5th grade integrated media and technology. So our elementary media specialists are teaching 8 to 10 unplugged and code.org CES fundamentals lessons during our technology units. We have our 6th grade computer literacy class that is tech applications and Code.org CS discoveries units, and the 10th grade class. These are all required 10th grade required computer science course. And then we have electives, 6th and 7th grade coding and robotics at both Lincoln and at Ordine. And I have a video to show. This isn't in your slideshow, this link, but I wanted to show this. This is Paige, who is a student at Ordine. I'm hoping the sound will work.
The Powerpuff Girls, that's her team name. She's missing a few of her teammates today. Okay, robots in. They've got a little bit different design.
They're studying marine robots, and they have a connection with Lake Superior, of course.
Wow. Yours is fast, Paige.
They built these from scratch and learned
Need some
how
help?
to use
There you
them.
go. We've got another crew over here saving a noodle that came off. Paige is diving to the bottom.
The program that they've got going, that robotics and coding, is really cool. We also have,
Can I just add one thing?
absolutely.
If you would like to see them in person, Ordine Middle School is doing demos and tests of their robots the next 2 days, so Wednesday and Thursday, during their area time, 10:40 to 11:14. You are welcome to come, head down to the pool, and see them in action and talk to students. So I think Cindy will be there tomorrow, and Paul and I will probably go on Thursday. This is the first Peter's hearing about it, but you're welcome to come check out the robots.
We have an 8th grade computer science that is doing data science and using Scratch technology, and the 9 through 12 AP computer science principles class. We have one class this year between the 3 high school environments, and it's offered at East, and it sounds like we have low enrollment for next year, so we're not sure yet what's going to happen with that, or we're not going to talk about it right now. So next year, we're going to look at computer science integrated with music and science standards. What I'd like to do is work with, for example, the 7th grade science teachers to integrate. I don't know what their units are, but we'll find a unit and we will incorporate computer science into it. And when those teachers are learning how to do that science unit that is new to them because it's newly adopted science, they will learn how to teach that with integrated computer science. That's the kind of thing that is a goal for me for next year. We're adding a class called Computer Repair Academy. It's through the Vivacity program. And those students, hopefully, we can make this work, that they will intern with our tech department and work with repairing our Chromebooks within our middle schools and high schools. Then we're adding a computer designing and computer gaming and app design in 11th and 12th grade. And outside of school programming, I'm exploring what we're doing outside of school that is computer science. And then the next year, more computer science integrated with music and science, multimedia and video, which is technically not computer science, but it's a course that we're adding in for 11th and 12th graders, and something called cybersecurity, which is just a dream of mine to be able to offer that course. We have some computer science PD that's coming up. We have 7 or 8 teachers going to this Midwest Indigenous Computer Science PD event next week. And we have we invited 4th grade teachers to attend this session that's being offered through Northern Lights Collaborative as well. That will be a mixed synchronous and asynchronous, but it's completely online and outside of the contract day. Several of us are going to the Minnesota Plus CS conference in April. And I am going to attend the Computer Science Teachers Association National Conference in Cleveland in the summer, and I'm going to learn about AI in our K-12 education, cybersecurity, program development, safety laws, and ethics. Those are my goals. Those are my plans. And I'm here to answer questions if you'd like to. Paul and Danette and Peter are able to answer questions as well. And one of my goals that I'll just put out there is to sustain this. This grant is for 4 years, and this is the second year of the grant. So 2 more years, assuming that we have federal funding to be able to continue. After that, we're going to need district commitment to continue our computer science development in our CTE and K-12 pathway. So if you have questions, we'd love to hear them.
Thank you. Superintendent Magus.
Sure. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the team for the great presentation, and thank you, Cindy, for always being such a strong leader in so many areas. It's widely recognized and greatly appreciated. Second, I'd like to say that these courses are exactly the type of thing that we want to develop and offer our students. It's something that they're deeply interested in, and I think it takes us as a district to the next level. And thirdly, just thinking about career pathways and how we work together, just a notice for the school board and everybody else who might be listening, we have, speaking of career pathways, we have a Duluth Promise press conference this Thursday at 2 o'clock at, actually right here, it was going to be at the Chamber, but it's hosted by the Chamber, and we're very excited about that. But when we think about it, technology and information technology was one of the pathways that we're working on significantly that will be part of that. And we have a bill that is sponsored both in the House and Senate with bipartisan support for some funding to really think about how could we further support that type of pathway development, including this one. So I think it's important for us as a district to continue to take on those responsibilities to look for additional resources when resources are scarce. It's not the easiest times, but really, really appreciative of the work you're doing. Yes, I'm glad to share.
Thank you. Member Williams and then Member Lowfoot. Thank you. We'll go with Member Lowfoot and then Member Banks.
So thank you too, yeah. This is incredible, although this is not my language at all. So I think I'm going to try to show up for the robotics demonstration at Ordine and maybe be invited into some of the classes that are in the high school because I just really, this was not in my teaching years for the most part. But it's exciting. So I missed, Cindy, you said something about there's low enrollment in one of, it was not too long ago, but low enrollment, so you don't know if it will be offered. And I didn't catch the name of that class.
So right now, 2 years ago, someone at Denfeld wrote a grant to build an AP testing. They offer a computer science course. And so they wrote a grant, we built it, we offer it without a pathway ahead of it. That's a pretty advanced level course to run, and it hasn't had high enrollment. We don't have a lot of kids who found they were really ready for it. So
What is it called? AP Computer Science?
AP Computer Science.
Okay.
Principles, yep. Principles, PLES, not
Okay.
PALS. And so we are hopeful that enrollment in that advanced level class will grow as we start to build
I gotcha.
programs underneath it.
And then you're looking at adding a computer repair. That's awesome. And then also computer gaming. And are those also then classes that we'd have to wait to see if they fill before we offer?
Yes, as is the case with all of our high school
Yep,
courses.
And
Registration
that's in
is-
our catalog now?
They are.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. And then I missed the part about this is all grant right now, until the very end when you said, we've got a grant for this and it lasts for 2 more years. So we will be advocating, we will write some bills. Again, I can't imagine that there isn't even some legislation right now because of the added computer science that we did in 2023. And then there was just, all of the things you're planning to do, the PD opportunities, and you said that it's online, it's outside the contract. So is there stipend money that comes, and that comes from that grant as well? Okay, awesome. So this is really great. Like I said, it seems like, how can we, in the kind of navigation we are right now with budget reductions and realignments, be so excited about what's down the road and what we can open up doors of opportunity for our students. So again, applause to all of us for continuing to show some light and some hope in our school district with classes that are meaningful and classes that will lead them to a career. So, yeah, we'll keep going, and you can answer that.
I think at this time, there's a lot of money out there that is being offered. If a district made a commitment toward computer science and the development of this program, that's what it would take. We can apply for grants. I'll leave it there.
Member Banks and then Member Williams.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering what the staffing looks like. I see the 4 of you. Can you talk a little bit more about the teachers and how many that would be in the district?
For the only actual teacher sitting here is Cindy. Paul helps lead the collaborative and has guided our group. And the 3 of us have been part of this group now for a couple of years. And they help push out the PD and we connect it with the teachers. So right now, the teachers that we've been working with and encouraging to attend the PD are the teachers who are currently teaching the computers classes and the robotics classes in middle school, and then our computer classes in high school. They've also been supported. We've pulled them out of you saw a meeting here where they've had time to check in and work with specialists to really develop and check in on how things are going. We've also now pushed out to 4th grade teachers some of that PD, and because of the connection, the goal of this grant in bringing computer science to Indigenous education, we've also reached out to Lowell teachers, encouraging them to sign up. It's hard to be out of your classroom, we understand that. So we continue to encourage. There are stipends offered, including for the one that happens during the school day. For the work you're putting in to now try some of these things, there's an additional stipend. So that's been a huge celebration for us too. And so at the elementary, the K6 level, K5 level, it's really been the media specialists that have been teaching a lot of this. At the middle school, it's more of and then it switches more to those computer science teachers. At the high school level, it will be in the communications CTE pathway, which is a story for another day, but that's where this fits.
K-12 media specialists are licensed to teach foundational computer science, not the extended level that our middle and high school teachers are teaching. So all of our K-12 media specialists are licensed for and trained through PD, offered through this deal for foundational computer science.
Thank you. Member Williams?
Thank you. I have a couple of different questions. You answered one, so I have less than original, so that's good. Can you tell me the acronym, the NLCCE? If you said it, I missed it and I didn't see it written. I'm sorry.
Yeah, our group is through the University of Minnesota. We're called the Northern Lights Collaborative for Computing Education.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then looking at next year's offerings, I am wondering with the computer repair academy and the gaming and app design, is there like a tangible takeaway? Like, can they just, after they finish this program or class, be like, I am certified to,
So the computer science and gaming isn't built yet. The goal of all CTE is to build in industry credentialing along the way. The Vivacity that was listed for the computer repair class, Vivacity is the company that we purchase our Chromebooks through, and they offer a course, an online course in computer repair. So our students it's a certification, kind of. We'll finish that before they then work with the DISs.
perfect.
To help build that, which will then hopefully free up those DISs to work more with teachers and support our educational technology. So.
Okay, and then my last question. So in 2023, or when Minnesota ranked dead last, how did 709? Do we know how 709 compared? Because you said Minnesota.
At that time, we didn't have any
We didn't
computer
have anything.
science
Okay, thank you.
offerings.
That was not clear to me. Thank you, that's all.
But now we're ready to be on that paper that has those 5 school districts listed. I've requested that we be added.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Member Sadowski, and then Member Meixel.
Thank you for this presentation and for all of your work with this really important curriculum. I think it's just really critical for making sure that our students, that our teachings are staying relevant, that our students are seeing just relevant curriculum in our school. I had a couple quick questions. I remember learning, and I'm 99% sure this is when we were down at the MSBA conference a couple years ago, we learned about code.org. How long have you been using code.org? Just curious.
We've had pet projects in the classrooms using code.org, a lot having to do with the hour of code that we do in December during that Computer Science Education Week. And by pet projects, I mean one teacher might teach this or that, but it's not continuous through the, as an offering that would provide equitable education. I have used code.org for several years in my classroom. As media specialists in the elementary schools, we piloted last year with CS Fundamentals that's offered through code.org. And this year, 8 to 10 lessons in K through 5 classes. And CS Discoveries is also through code.org, and that's being used in that 6th grade tech or computer literacy course. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Okay. I was just, I remember being really impressed by that presentation, so it's cool to see it being integrated, and hopefully it's a good, useful tool. And I don't know if this is a question or more of a comment, but Cindy, I'm really glad to hear you're going to a conference on AI. I have 2 high schoolers myself, and I hear other students talking about it, and I think they're wanting, they know it's there. Some of them use it. I think some of them are a little apprehensive to use it because they want to use it correctly. Also, I would just share that a couple students recently shared with me something that I learned. I didn't know that there's pretty significant environmental impact from AI, water to cool the buildings that are holding all of the information. And actually, they shared with me a search engine that doesn't use AI, so I've started to try to test that out and use it, but those are our students that shared that with me actually at a meeting a couple days ago, which I thought was cool. So our students, they probably know a lot more about it than we do, and thank you for taking time in the summer to go to that, and hopefully we can figure out ways to kind of come alongside our students and teach them how to use those tools responsibly, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for rising to the occasion of getting Minnesota off of that last spot on that list. I appreciate your dedication, Cindy, to this. 3 questions. So I was curious what other districts are in the Northern Lights Consortium?
Yeah, there's 6 school districts, actually, as of yesterday, 7 schools and districts participating in this National Science Foundation grant. So in addition to Duluth, we have the Fond du Lac Ojibwe School, Hermantown Schools, we have Ely, Mountain Iron Buell, St. Louis County Public Schools, and the new school that just signed on yesterday was Net Lake School.
Great. And you meet routinely, and that's just more information sharing, like curriculum development sharing? Like what happens at those collaborations?
Yeah, we have a couple of different monthly meetings that representatives from each district attend. We call one of them a core team meeting, smaller meeting to discuss what's happening related to grant goals and outcomes each month and connect with that core team of representatives. We have larger professional learning network meetings. Those happen quarterly, 2 of them online and 2 of them in person. Cindy showed some pictures from the one that we had here. And then we'll have another in-person meeting coming up here at the end of the school year. And then each district can schedule their own regular meetings to meet with the district. We call them computer science champions to kind of work on those district level plans, as well as some subgroups that do some planning, reflecting on research goals, and another subgroup for the professional development.
Awesome, thank you. Cindy, I know your .2 position of your 100% self is paid for by grants. The remainder of like our leaders in this, are you grant funded at all for the work that you contribute to this?
Other than, there's a stipend for participating. But other than that, no, Cindy's time, it doesn't pay for any of our teachers. It does support the PD, but it doesn't pay for any FTE.
And just for the
Other than
community,
Cindy.
PD is professional development,
Professional
so teaching
development,
teachers the tools they need to affect our students well. Okay. And then I was curious about the curriculum, like how it's created and develops, like as we're rolling out these new classes every year. How are we creating those lessons and the goals and how we're grading, like, teach me a wise one.
So last summer was a crazy summer of new course building, so that's not the norm. And so we've kind of backtracked a little, and the support that comes from being part of this grant has been critical. So when building these courses, there's not like a textbook that you can buy and use. It is really deciding what skills and frameworks you want to teach and use, and then finding a resource for them. Equipment needs arise as you do that. When we have to have the technology to teach them. But we have had a ton of support from Paul and the team and the collaborative, really helping us decide what should be taught. At the CTE, at the high school level, there are some frameworks that the state wants us to align to, so we've worked on integrating those. But it is really a unique process of finding things like code.org. There's a lot of resources out there, and a lot of it is free to access and use. And so it's vetting those resources, training on them, and then embedding them. So it's kind of an ongoing process because those resources change.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was going to add as well that one of the outcomes of the grant is to develop new curriculum that incorporates Ojibwe language and culture with computer science learning. And so Duluth schools have been really helpful in having some teachers where I'll go pilot a new lesson and get feedback. So right now I'm doing that at Lincoln Park Middle School with Carrie Wright in the science class, and we've got a couple of parents that are attending those classes and giving feedback. And so and like last year was Chrissy Valento and some other teachers helping give feedback and refine the curriculum that then we share freely with anybody that wants to use it.
That's incredible. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to the team also for this work and this effort. Cindy has always been a good partner and advocate, especially not only computer science, but also library science, and helping to make sure our collections are diverse. And, over the years, she's really helped with making sure that happens. So I want to say thank you for that. I said thank you last year and the year before that, but I'm also saying it now again. So I thank you. And also just reminder, board, that there'll be lots of opportunities to ask more questions. We have 3 other presentations that probably will be meaningful and probably have lots of questions as well. So just want to keep that in mind. Chair Loaf,
Honest, one last one.
Member Loaf.
So we are currently offering the mandated computer science to our 10th graders, right? Do any of these classes that are in our catalog now and could possibly roll out fill that mandated requirement? Is that a class that would cover that? That's one question. And then 2, how are we redesigning computer science? I know it was one of those hard rollouts this summer with curriculum, and I've seen some of our staff already here with, working on the next year's computer science. But I just wonder about our current computer science class in 10th grade, mandated, required.
Yes, thank you. So the Computer Science 10 has been reworked over the course of the year, and that we will dedicate some summer writing hours for that team to meet again with support to decide, again, now solidify. We've tried a lot of things this year. What needs to stick? What needs to change? And then that course kind of serves as the gate into the other courses. So it should give the fundamental knowledge you need to be ready to take computer gaming and design and to be ready to go into that computer repair. And then Cindy mentioned some other courses that we have as goals. I know the journalism discussion has come up, and that's where a lot of these courses will live and fit, is in that same communications pathway at the state level. So that's why they kind of go together, because so much of what is media now is technology-based, that they really fit together well. So did I answer all of your questions? Okay.
And of course, it has to evolve, because this year's sixth graders, when they get to 10th grade, will already have learned all the things that we're telling them they have to learn in 10th grade right now. They will already have that when they get there, because they're learning similar skills now in younger grades. So it'll evolve as time goes on.
Thank you. Thank you again. Next up, we have our Family Engagement Specialist, Ms. Shalon Monroe. She will be providing an update related to our attendance campaign and efforts as she approaches the table. As you know, one of the things that we've communicated for some time, especially this year, is the fact that we have far too many of our students not attending school regularly. And if you all know, like I know, if students are not present, many of them cannot learn unless they are in front of staff and highly qualified teachers who can support them and support their academic development and attend to their social emotional needs. So we have been really striving as a district to enhance our attendance efforts and to get our students to school in a variety of ways. And so I'll turn it over to Shalon and Adele Wellens, who is our Public Information Officer, for our presentation. I'll turn it over to Shalon and Adele.
Just trying to get my bearings together, so please, apologies. So I just want to start off by saying what I passed around is just information about an event that I went to down in St. Paul. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's just kind of if you all wanted to look at it. But, so we'll get started. I will be looking at my computer on and off and in my notes, so if I'm not looking directly at you. So we'll start off this presentation about attendance versus chronic absenteeism. We all know that attendance can look different, but it also can have the same variety as chronic absenteeism. Attendance is if a student attends more than 90% of school during that school year. If you miss 2 days or 10%, then you fall in the category of chronic absenteeism. So we look at also when attendance numbers start to fall, we automatically take that first step. For some, it's letters. For some, it's having a conversation with the student. There are multiple reasons or multiple variables, of what that first step looks like for different students on different school levels. Chronic absenteeism is an issue when it's a recurring problem that a student misses school. Kids can miss schools for a number of reasons, but when they start to miss school for more than 3 days, that's when we all tend to get worried. Again, missing 10% or more, which is 2 days of a year, can translate into students having difficulties learning to read by 3rd grade, advancing in middle school, and even graduating from high school. And if I talk fast, please tell me to slow down. And it's 2 days per month. Excuse my correction. Yeah, sorry, I tend to kind of skip around, so it's 2 days per month. You're welcome. So now we want to flip the next slide to attendance policy updates. So we take a deep look at our attendance policies that we looked over and reviewed for a while now. We looked at it from the beginning of the school year to now, middle of the school year, and kind of looking at how do we change it within different languages, rewording, what standard attendance looks like throughout our school district. We know that the new attendance policies went into the second read and was approved by the school board on Tuesday, February the 25th. And then we also know that we look at 3 different languages. We look at absent and we look at exempt. Sometimes those two can kind of get entangled, so we will be having training with our clericals about what we look at as absent, what we look at as unexcused, and what we look at as exempt. Now, let's take a nice look at the numbers. Students are considered constantly attending if they attend more than 90% of time that a student is enrolled during the year. As you can see from the charts, is where our attendance is or has been as a whole. We start out high and we see those numbers dip a little bit. But it's okay because we know that our students are finding ways, families are finding ways to figure out how we can continue to work together to get their students into our school building and then into our class. Growing through challenges and implementation. So we have several different areas that we use to help families and kids get to school. We know we did the partnership with the DTA last year. That definitely was a hit. And we have brought it back again this year, thanks to our wonderful administrators. And so that offers free rides for high school students and staff. And I can personally attest that I've seen kids get on the bus. I've actually had a young gentleman who helped me and a couple other students doing a school event of how to navigate the bus system. So please know it does work. Then we have school sites have their own individual vans. Now the vans are for other activities. So as I listed, people or students who want to attend events, who want to participate in extracurricular activities, it gives them a way to do that, and for those families to know that their kids will have a ride home. Now, we do help our students by providing rides, but they are not consistent rides because we want students and families to understand the importance of attendance. So if a student happens to make a trip to school every single day, and then they happen to miss 1 week and they cannot find an additional ride to school, we always advise families and students to call the school to let us know that you cannot come. And we will do our best to come and pick up the child. And then we have Parent Square, which is a way of communicating which is growing, and parents are really starting to have a better understanding of it and love it to see when their teachers, principals, staffs are able to connect with them, whether that's via phone call, via text message. So they really have been growing since we implemented it into our school year. Student survey says, so we provided a survey for both of our high schools and middle schools, which is about the cause of absenteeism survey. And as you can see, so far, our survey is still open. There have been 1,007 submissions completed. And some of those reasons stood out to me of why students miss school. And it's not for those reasons you would think of, I was late, didn't feel good, missed the bus. No, it's illnesses, minor illnesses or doctor's appointment. Now, we did find out, and I say me and Adele, we work close together, we did find out that our students did see an increase in response for feeling anxious or depressed. Progression as a whole. Attendance is a measure that can be evaluated from the beginning, halfway, and end of the school year. So each school and site and grade level has experienced attendance concerns at different levels. So we start off by this wonderful picture of our staff at Lakewood Elementary. Now, every Monday, the staff members wear a t-shirt that says, "We're glad that you're here, and we want to encourage you to come." It's a really cute t-shirt if you haven't seen it. Now, we also have to hit those concerning spots. Myers Wilkins attendance, yes, it has grown in levels, but it also has seen a little bit of decrease in those numbers due to unseen circumstances with having issues when it comes to constant school bus routes getting canceled. And they've had more than 3 cancellations in the past month. Progression as a whole. So as you can see, I have it narrowed down to all 3 levels, elementary school, middle school, and high school level. And what at each level they find out to be helpful when it comes to getting parents and students to understand the importance of attendance. Elementary level, communication with Parent Square via calls, via text messages, phone calls, sending letters home. And those letters are being attached to kids' book bags or letters so that their parents can actually see it and not have to dig inside the book bags. And then having daily check-ins with our students. Doesn't matter how young a student is, they know how to communicate. They know how to tell you when something's wrong. So trying to figure out how to communicate to them in their level to really get an understanding of what's going on. In middle school, we do the same thing. Parent Square, phone calls and texts, sending out letters, but that's more of really diving into the relationship that we have with the students. That one-on-one meeting with counselors, staff members, and then that's when we have to sometimes add in those attendance contracts that we have to bring families in. If we feel like we need a more concrete measure to really understand how do we help to provide that increase within attendance. And on the high school level, same thing, But this is when that actual one-on-one communication comes into effect, building strong student and staff relationship and heartfelt conversation. And I can stand here before you to tell you that it honestly is true. I have conversations with high school kids all the time, trying to figure out what's your goals for graduation, why can you not attend, why are we attending but not going to class? There's a difference when you attend school, but you're in the hallways, you're not learning. So I have those conversations, and I can say that those actually do work. Moving and shaking on the district level. So like I said before you, there are sheets that I kind of passed out about an event that I attended on February the 10th. So I found out doing my own research for another event that February the 10th is pronounced National African American Parent Involvement Day. It is not a national holiday, but it is recognized in certain states, and Minnesota is one of them. So I went down to St. Paul and really got to understand, like, what does that mean? What does that look like? The 3 schools I visited was Eastern Heights Elementary, Highland Park Middle, and then Central High School. And I got to really experience what each school did. So at the elementary level, their principal was new this year, so they had coffee with the principal, and 3 parents showed up, including one that actually works there. And it was like, I asked questions like, what are your modes of communication? What do you want? One parent said, I want to have communication of an event 2 or 3 weeks in advance, not the week of, not that Friday and trying to figure out how to come on that Monday. Or it was really being involved with our child's education, showing up to more events, maybe doing more daytime events, to where we feel like we can actually come in and really see our kids doing their work. At the middle school, they had a nice little luncheon where the parents got to sit, talk to the principals, and then parents got to give a tour that was given by their students. Also the same thing, what works for them on a high school level? Some of their kids are going into high school, so they get to kind of have that middle ground where it's like, let's communicate more, still give you your freedom, but not understand that education is important. And then I went to Central High School, and I was very amazed. They had a whole event laid out from 8:30 until 2:30. I came in during lunch period, so I was really, really happy. But theirs was very interesting. It was parents came in, they had breakfast with their kids, and then their Black Student Union gave a tour of all the parents that came. And then they got to sit into the library, and they had different community members to come in. One of them actually did a documentary about Save Our Sons, and they got to watch the event, and then the kids actually had to have a discussion with the author about what does that movie mean to them, what does it mean to be an African American in St. Paul, and even a student right now, especially in high school. On top of that, they got a catered lunch, and then again, I got to meet with their 9th grade dean, their principal, to really talk about how do we involve our parents more. And one of their deans told me something that was very, very vital. If you can't get to the parents, get to the ones that you can get to. Who do we have access to? The students. So sometimes it's okay to take a break if we can't get to mom and dad, because if we can get to the student, then we can really make that message. Oh, sorry. Then what I do is that I attend different PTA meetings, attendance meetings, CIT meetings, and ongoing parent advisory meetings. Some of those PTA meetings are different at every level, from the high school to the elementary to the middle. They do different fundraising events that also is different family engagement event. I went to a carnival at Stowe, I went to a movie night at Ordine. So it's a little bit of different things, but it's always about how do we involve families, but how do we involve the students, even the students who may not have the money to afford. What can we do to make sure that every student has a good time? CTI meetings, what schools are doing to improve from last year, from month to month. Those are really good meetings that I like to kind of sit in to kind of really see how the teachers are going about their day, but how they're also engaging as well, different things that they're doing. Like over the break, they had the high school level, different days where kids who were probably undercredited a little bit, really wanting to give them homework help. So they got to come to Neighborhood Youth Services or ACO and really get help within their homework. And then one thing that I did within working with my colleagues was a volunteer application. I try my best to go to every Thursday and Tuesday morning, the Washington Center. And I've heard a lot of individuals who want to come and help and volunteer in our schools. Now, this volunteer application is different. Each school has their own way of how they volunteer. But this is a volunteer application that anyone can fill out who wants to volunteer in our school, whether it's elementary, middle, high school, reading the kids, math tutor, anything they can think of. They fill it out, it comes to me, I go through it, and then I connect with the principal to figure out how they can use this individual. And then I will connect back to those that apply. This is the part where we ask for questions. Thank you for the opportunity to come up here in front of you, and I appreciate it.
Member Williams?
I did not think I would be first, so I was going to write down my question so it sounded better. So I will just kind of go off of the chart. I do have a couple of questions, but in our packet, it's on page 20, it looks like.
Page 4 of the presentation.
Thank you, page 4 of the presentation. So one, there are no numbers in July and August, correct? Okay.
That is correct.
That's just showing where 100 is. Okay. And then is that from this year? This
Yes,
is
this school year.
current?
Yes.
Okay. And then do we have, do we know what absenteeism or attendance rates look like broken down by demographics?
We have those, we can get those, yes, but this was just a whole look at just the school district. But yeah, we are able to see when it comes to demographics.
Okay, I'm just, yeah, curious about when we're talking about the NAPP, what is it, the
So
National?
it's National African American Involvement Parent Day.
Yes.
Yes.
So do we, as a district, have plans to make that a day we acknowledge here in Duluth next year? And then how are we encouraging ongoing parent involvement, specifically with Black parents? Yeah, to stay involved more than just, here's a day you can come and have coffee with us.
So I want to say that in a NAPT, I forgot how they said it. It is not, yes, it is within the term of African American, but when I was there, I realized it is for all parents. But that day was actually founded by a former educator and principal, Mr. John Dullen. He's a retired educator, and he actually founded that day. So yes, when I came back, I started looking at like how do we incorporate that day in here. I actually talked to, if I may, assistant superintendent about it, and I've also recently talked to Ms. Annie Schilling, our PD day, to make sure there was nothing set within PD day for that day to try to figure out how we can work on that day. So that is in planning. It has not started, but it is in planning that I'm looking to do for next year, for next school year. And then how do we get our parents involved? Honestly, communication. When I look at it on a school level, yes, we do the events, we send out the notice, we involve every parent. What I can say is me showing up to the Washington Center BIPOC Parent Association meeting every second and fourth Thursday night, going out into NYS, talking to some of their leadership, kind of when they see parents come up, how do we kind of engage? So the conversation is ongoing. Me being out in the community is ongoing, and it's an ongoing conversation, to be fairly honest with you. It's getting them to every event as possible, and then for understanding the importance of not just showing up when you get phone call because your child isn't in class. It's showing up to meetings, showing up to involvement. So that is an ongoing conversation, but an ongoing conversation with movement attached to it.
And then I do have, so we use a tool called EduClimber, so I can pull up the stats almost instantly. So our consistent attendance by ethnicity right now, as of today, American Indian is at 70.37%. Black or African American is at 65.98%. Two or more races is at 74.76%. Hispanic and Latino is at 81.54%, and white is at 88.31%.
Can you say the American Indian again, 70?
70.37.
70.37. And white was at 80 what?
88.31.
Thank you. I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Member Banks?
Yeah. Thank you. I just have two questions. Do you have any pre-COVID information to compare with the current data that you could share with us? And I don't know if this is for Assistant Superintendent Bonds or Superintendent Magus. Does ISD 709 have any attendance incentive programs? I know there are a number of schools in Minnesota that do have incentive programs for attendance. It doesn't have to be elaborate or anything like that. Is there something that could be put in place or is in place that could certainly motivate our kids to attend school on a regular basis?
Nothing that is district-wide except our attendance campaign. Obviously, we are encouraging students. We're looking for reliable transportation opportunities for students, right? Increasing opportunities through the DTA and others. Each school has attendance as a focus within their school improvement plans. If it's not in their school improvement plans, it's one of their focus areas for improving, because again, this is something we noticed that is widespread in terms of a problem, hence why we are really even attempting to focus on improving attendance across the board as a district. And so we don't have anything that's district-wide, but those are things that we were looking for. When Shalon approached me to attend events in the cities, I was like, okay, we'll do some homework on it, and she came back and share some information. I said, sounds like a good opportunity to go and learn what others are doing in terms of best practices for improving attendance. And so that's where she came up with some of the ideas that are being used in the city. So we're looking and exploring those district-wide initiatives and efforts. But right now, we are really relying on our school sites to think of strategies that work with their students.
Can I also say, I think I might have missed the question, but I think I might have caught it on the back end. And then also one thing that I wanted to allude to, that at Central High School, when I walked in, they were talking about really getting outside of the metro city area and really connecting with other school districts. And they happened to mention Duluth right when I walked in. And so we are kind of working together. We want to work together. That is the goal of figuring out what does attendance look like for them? How does it work for our students? One of the flyers I passed around is JK Movement. They are an organization that works outside, like down the street from Central. So we're working on how to figure out how do we get our kids connected. So we're working on different projects of doing that, working with the St. Paul Director of Family Engagement, trying to in partnership and bounce off. So those conversations are happening, as well as trying to figure out what works there and how can we bring it to our area, maybe what works for us that they can take as well, if that's a part of the question you asked.
On that note, just because it's answering your question, partially answering, I also recognize that there are a lot of positive behavior intervention support responses that are maybe not incentive from the perspective of necessarily somebody getting a prize or something like that, but sometimes there are things like, paw bucks and things like that through other sites that are partly in recognition for attendance. So I think that fitting it within the positive behavior intervention and support programming is part of what we do, but ensuring that it's systemic and not necessarily strong in one school and not as strong in others, but also allowing for some autonomy so that if one school is learning and doing something that works for them and working well, then maybe it can apply and work in other schools. And I think about just the other day when I was at Piedmont, there's a big sign out front and it's like, Panthers attend, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something, it was a lot catchier than Panthers attend, but it was something really good. And I just want to applaud the work that you're doing on this. I think that attendance is a very, very serious issue, and it's something that is important. On a personal note, I remember when I was in elementary school and I was missing, it was middle school, missed quite a bit of school and reached the point of being chronically absent, and had a social worker actually come out to our house and check on things. And so that turned things around, and I think it was important for outreach. And so I think I just wanted to say that because I think that attendance issues and anxiety and things like that, I think sometimes we attribute them to maybe certain kids or certain parents or certain parts of the, things like that. And I think it's important to recognize that any student or any family might have attendance issues, and we want to think about things holistically as far as how we reach out and provide scaffolding to make sure students are attending every day. And that's why we have the slogan, every student, every day.
I just want to say, to answer your question, Member Banks, so when we look at the number, if you want to go back, my dear, to slide 4, I do believe, real quick, the chart, these are the numbers now, and like you said, well, the numbers pre-COVID. So the numbers in pre-COVID were similar to the same. So September was 88, and then from October, 87, November, 87.7, December went a little bit higher, it was at 90%, but it's that steady little rate of between 87 and 80% of students that attended right in that little area. You're welcome.
Which again magnifies why we are focused on attendance, right? Because I heard stronger attendance numbers back then than we have now. I'll go with Member Mikesell and then Member Derek Eater.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I think I've gotten a little bit more clarity in terms of the timeline and numbers of attendance rates and percentages pre-COVID and where we are now. Just to be clear, our attendance rates are going down this school year. Is that correct? Okay. But we're speaking about different interventions. We did a survey. When did that survey go out in terms of this timeline?
Sorry. It went out the first week of, so I think February the 11th. So it's like recently went out within the past couple weeks.
Okay, and did that survey go out because we were seeing this decline, or was that already planned on
That
going
was
out in
already
February?
planned.
Okay. And so we've collected that data that we've received from students, and we got over 1,000 responses out of how many students?
4,800, I do believe, if I'm wrong. Yeah, 4,800.
Okay.
But that's between, again, the middle and the high school, for both.
The middle and high school?
Yes, ma'am.
And so we got a little bit,
So we have
about
1,000.
20%-ish?
About 25% now. The survey is still open, so we probably still have more. But
Okay.
yeah, when all of this was done, we had about 25%-ish.
Great. And then we talked about interventions that staff and you are now doing, which sound, like people are very much trying, which is amazing. You mentioned something about letting students know that if they miss the bus or they're not able to get to school, they should know that they can call the school and that we have vans and all that kind of stuff. How are students getting that information?
So we worked on that information the beginning of the year. We got it out to principals, and then principals alerted their staff to alert the students as well. And with that, it's either the student or the parents will call. If the parents call, my student missed, we don't have another way, or if a kid calls as well. So students have kind of been getting that information throughout, if they see principals or throughout the staff who have alerted the students.
Great. And are we doing any tracking of that so we can see how that's being used?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
So it's all coming through transportation. And so there's a person at each site who is the van coordinator. So anytime that the van is being used, whether it's being used for it, they do have to fill out a form or fill out a sheet. And then that sheet goes to the coordinator. And then every month, that sheet is sent to transportation.
Great. Yep. And so are we seeing an increase in usage yet?
We will have to look that up. And I can talk to transportation about that information and get that.
Right, and I do need to add a point of clarification on that. What Shalon is describing is when or during an emergency, students can be picked up and transported by someone that they might be working with. For example, an integration specialist who may have a relationship with a student. The student misses the bus for a variety of reasons or something. If there is a contact and the integration specialist is approved to drive the bus, or not bus, but drive the van, that person may go and pick up a student. A principal may go and pick up a student. So it's not something that's set up as a regular practice in terms of schedule. Practice is not the right word, a regular schedule, because we do have our provider is our own fleet of buses, as well as with Voyager. And so students are scheduled, but if there's an emergency, they can be picked up, and that does happen frequently.
And so what I hear you saying, it's not for general public use, it's for students who already have a connection with some special services or
Yes.
some special connection with a service that's, can offer that. as a-
Yes, they can.
Okay, and then just a few more. So just, I'm hearing Superintendent Maga's story of when he was a student and had some issues with absentee or chronic absenteeism, how a social worker came out to his house and they were able to do some other interventions and provide some resources that were turned him in a positive way. I'm looking at some of the other interventions that we're providing as a district. So at the elementary school level, we're doing daily check-ins, middle school, we're doing weekly check-ins, high school, we're having heartfelt conversations. Who are the people who are having those check-ins and who are the people who are monitoring those things?
So it is from principals to assistant principals, deans, teachers, integration specialists. It's pretty much whoever those students may feel have that relationship, or those staff who may not have seen that kid Thursday, Friday, Wednesday, and saw them Monday and Tuesday. So it kind of just depends on who may have that connection. If a teacher notices that their kid is not in class for 4 days, then they will probably reach out to the dean or to the principal or send that letter. Most likely will send that letter first, and then we'll reach out to whoever they feel. Like, let's say if Johnny had the connection to the integration specialist, the teacher will reach out to the integration specialist saying, have you heard from Johnny or seen him, because he hasn't been in my class. And then also within the attendance meetings as well that I attend, they do their like check-in as well. And then if it gets to a certain point, so if it's like over 12 absence or it gets to a certain point, then they will also have to reach out to the county, kind of like a superintendent said, he had a county social worker come out. It does get to that point, but once we get to our number in our school, then we reach out to the county, which the schools have a connection with.
Okay, thank you. And the last point I was just going to make is that within your presentation, you talked about some of the policy language with our updated policy, and we're using the phrases exempt and absent, and that language is not in the policy. It's excused and unexcused absences. So you just will want to make sure that you're providing accurate information to our staff at the school sites.
So it actually is in the policy. It's in the regulation, but it actually is in the policy.
Unless it's not updated recently.
Perhaps that's it.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
But thank you for the feedback, and we will look into it. Chair Derek Eater.
Thank you. I want to really lift up the work that you did down in St. Paul and talk about figuring out ways so that we can make our school buildings inviting to a population of parents who maybe when they were in school, those weren't great places for them to be. So back in North Dakota where I grew up, we always talk about every time you walk in the bathroom, if somebody hit you in the face with a scoop shovel, you stop walking in the bathroom, right? So I really like the idea of let's pull the scoop shovel away from the bathroom. Let's invite people in so that they remember that these are their spaces too. So this work that you're doing with parents and kids right now, think about how that translates generationally. So hopefully this work that you're doing with these kids to get them into school is going to translate to their children so that when they have their kids, they see the schools as places where they feel safe, seen, and heard. So I want to thank you for that, because I think sometimes we forget about my experience in school was this great experience, but that's not for everybody. And then when you have those kids and you want to go to school, maybe those aren't places that you trust and that you feel safe sending your kids. So I really want to take a minute and acknowledge that work that you're doing to go out into the community and invite people back into places that they may have found to be marginalizing and discriminatory towards them. So thank you for
so
doing
much.
this
I
work. I
appreciate
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Lawful.
Yeah, too, I just want to like this topic and the work we're doing and the commitment that we've had from the leadership team to allow Shalon to do the work she's doing so that we can continue to move forward. When Shalon explains that, each building is really intently looking at attendance, they are. I mean, in every building I've been in, you see the signs. I know that, just recently, I think we had a conversation about Denfeld hired a para that is creating wonderful opportunities to enhance attendance. That is her focus. She's reached out to teachers. I'm doing a small group too, because maybe on my speech team, there are kids struggling for attendance. So they've created kind of this opportunity for students to connect with a teacher that they identify with, that is willing to connect with them on attendance issues. So, and I'm sure Denfeld is not unique. I'm sure all of our buildings have worked with their CIT to really create what they need to continue that attendance journey. But it's a hard journey. I mean, I don't think, we maybe just secured, jobs for a lot of other district, and because attendance, if we let go of it, if we think we've got it somewhat under control because it moves the needle a little bit, it's going to slip again another year or two when something else comes up. And as you look at the temperature in our country, we've got to keep our positivity and our commitment to attendance to being a safe place to go. Try to also get them into the classroom too when they come, but because it's really a challenge, I think, for attendance. And I think sometimes too, we have taken such a big jump with collecting data. As a high school teacher for years, I would see this same decline, especially in the at the end of like November. Some of our students start slipping away, and then they're pretty not there through all of December. Then January comes, and you see this little slight increase because it's the new semester in middle school and high school. So they re-enroll or they make a commitment thinking they're going to hold on, and then sometimes they can stay solid, especially if they're a senior and they see some hope for graduation, but it's just that timeline. So sometimes when you think, how can you restructure a day? I'm not looking for that or anything, but you're trying to think outside the box of how attendance. Same thing with bringing parents in. We've done all kinds of things in our district to bring, we've had after, what was that called, Adele and Superintendent, after our, community meetings, during our referendum, and we were in every PTA, and we were lucky if we got over 10, usually it was under 10, of our community to come in. So, but then when you see our full community service schools, and of course that's a model, we see that, and you've connected very well with some of our schools that offer that. But that after school, I see more students there. I see somewhat their celebrations bring in more of those parents. So I know we're moving, hoping we could get more full community service schools targeted in our district, but that's also a model to continue to pursue. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Member Lofa. And if you can, in a moment, you want to speak to what the state is doing, because I know you are aware of a big effort related to attendance. If you want to speak to that in a moment. But you're spot on, and thank you for recognizing. The takeaway is that we recognize that our student attendance is not where it should be, and because it has been challenged, that's why we came up with the attendance campaign. That's why we put a lot of efforts. Again, all school sites are working on things that make school welcoming, inviting, and something that students want to come to, right, through our PBS process. So that's our district-wide kind of effort. But then each school has its own initiative and different support staff that are working on attendance initiatives or efforts, to get students to school. So there's a lot of things happening and that are individualized site by site as well.
And I think that because I've had to look at this, because I've gotten inquiries from media, and also I've had to communicate our well child so much this year. So when students in their absenteeism survey said that it's because they're just sick, the numbers show that. When I pulled the numbers back in January for one of our media members, I found that in 2023, we had at that point, for the first semester, or for the first 2 weeks of January, just the first 2 weeks of January, there were only 1,761 days missed by students. But the first 2 weeks of January this year, due to illness, we had 4,448. So we have had one of our biggest illnesses, like the flu. I had to send multiple letters to multiple schools about GI infections. So I would take these numbers compared to 2019, 2020 with a grain of salt, because we have seen such a large increase in illnesses this year, just due to the flu, GI issues, and just the everyday things that we lost our immunity to during the lockdown.
Member Sadowski, and then Superintendent Magus.
Actually, what you just said right now might data is so interesting, right? There's just so many variables and ways that it can be impacted. Because I was going to ask about, the DTA, and I'm just curious you don't need to answer it today, but I'd just be curious, like, over the next few months, maybe in June, July, getting some, I don't know if there would be some data on just how that may have influenced or impacted our attendance. But then I hear that and knew that there were so many illnesses in January and February. Well, that might negate that, but.
And we could pull the attendance data from the last time that we did have the DTA. So that would have been last year during the second semester. So we can look at that compared to other years.
Yeah, thank you. And I do think it'll be really helpful, though. I've known a lot of youth over the years who maybe lived out a ways, and if they missed their school bus, having the DTA, and a bus pass would have been really helpful for them at that point. So I'm excited to kind of see what kind of outcomes we have from that. I guess then I just had another thought, too. I feel like this attendance piece is very connected to a lot of the other conversations that we've had in previous COWs when it comes to making sure that our curriculum is representative of many populations. And I know that's some work that some people in this room have done, and I appreciate that. And we can continue to work on that. And also, even the computer science presentation today, making sure that our courses are engaging and kind of relevant to our youth. So I think it's all connected. And then lastly, Shalon, I just wanted to say thank you for all of your community outreach, just to different organizations too, like those partnerships matter. And I appreciate you being that person and getting in touch with all of them.
Superintendent Magus?
I just wanted to say as well that when we think about the nexus between mental health issues and attendance, I think that's an important thing to recognize, and that's part of the reason why through our budget reductions and through the referendum, we were trying to make sure we found resource and supported in those areas. I think that even oftentimes absences that are reported as an illness are quite often based in some way in anxiety and other factors. And so thinking about how we're handling that and how we're supporting that is very, very important. And then I thought it was important for us to recognize for Chair Derek Eater and the public that our bathrooms are scoop shovel free.
I know we got to get ready to go. I just want to say 3 things. One, I hope I'm about to pronounce this correctly. Remember Mike Sell? Gotcha. Okay. If you look in 503R student attendance regulation, it has exempt on it. So just wanted to kind of just let you know that's where that is. And letter F, if you were still looking for that one. Secondly, thank you all so much for your kind words on the work that's being done. And for me, I appreciate that dearly. So please know that I really do thank you, and I appreciate it. And thirdly, all the copies that I kind of sent out, I actually need those back, but I can give you copies. I just need them back as I continue the partnership. So thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up, we have another presentation under Improving Systems. We have our Executive Director for HR Operations, Teresa Severance, is coming up. She also has with her HR Manager, Charlie Cook. They will be sharing information related to our recruitment and retention plan.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to be here to speak to you tonight about our draft employee recruitment and retention plan. Many of you are aware that we have been working on this for quite some time, so it's very exciting to be able to bring it forward here in almost a final form, but we are looking for feedback. One of the things that we believe this plan, it's essential for making sure that we have the best team that supports and serves our students. And sometimes that's not always something that's connected, like HR does HR stuff, but there really is a student connection, and I'll talk about that in a future slide. But we really look at this as a strategy to really designed to attract, develop, and retain the people that are going to serve our students and that are dedicated to our mission, vision, and core values. I know you've seen this slide many times before, so I'm not going to go over it, but just kind of a reminder that this is what all of our work is based in. So why this plan matters and what's really exciting about it, I know we talked about this as an improving systems report, but we really touch all three of our core strategic plan goals, supporting every student. And again, we are providing the employees or helping to provide the employees into our school system that really work day to day with the students. So it's really important work. Advancing equity, we have a commitment to attracting and retaining top quality diverse staff. And we've talked before about how do we match our staff to our student population. And you have a data point that we'll talk about a little bit later related to that. And then making sure that we're getting employees that are really looking for lifelong learning and the values that we want to see, and then that diversity component as well. And then in improving systems, this is something that, again, we've been working on for a while, finally putting it forward, but it will always be something that we move forward and adjust as we need to based on outcomes and data sets. And so we'll be using data-driven strategies, as you'll see in the report, kind of to look at how can we continuously improve in this plan. So it'll be a moving document.
Yeah, so when we look at it, for recruitment and retention, we are very committed to diversity and inclusion, actively recruiting diverse teams, utilizing our workforce to reflect the diverse student body that we have at Duluth Public Schools. So when you look at the handout for the data that was from March 1st, of this year, we have our staff percentage for our staff diversity, and then we have our student percentage, and then the last one would be the differences between, and we really want every student to have someone that they can relate to if it's that way. Being a former teacher myself, I know it's really important for students to have someone that they can see themselves and they can go to, and that's extremely important when we go through and recruit this. So with that, we are targeting, we use targeted advertising for recruitment. So again, we advertise open positions on many forums, including EdPost, which is through that St. Cloud State University, Indeed, and then also social media. That way we can try and reach as many audiences and candidates as possible. And then we also look at partnerships and outreach to educational institutions, going to colleges, universities, seeing what is their new teaching programs, what other staff do they have, and it could be anything from a para wanting to maybe move through and become a teacher and doing things like that as well. We try to engage in the community as much as we can, and then go from there for attracting and retaining that talent. So with that, we've really tried to expand our advertising and partnerships throughout the couple of years that I've been here, for sure. And that is working with organizations and partnering with organizations like Careers in Government, as well as there we go. Yep, so Careers in Government, as well as diversifying just to get wider and diverse pool of candidates for that. We are attending, so far we're registered for 8 job fairs and career fairs to make sure that we're all over the state, that people can come to Duluth and that want to come to Duluth and work here, as well as looking at UMD and the universities, just even within just kind of a stone throw away from us. There's a lot of great potential candidates to work at Duluth, not just teaching candidates, but this is our maintenance staff, our facilities, our technology, the whole scope of all of our employees in order to just try and be as inclusive as we can for them. Now, with that, we look at comprehensive onboarding and mentorship opportunities. So our onboarding plan, when we bring staff in, we really want them to come to HR, right? We have orientation, and then we get them set up, and we really want to make sure that they understand that the moment they start, they're valued. It's a big deal to get a job at Duluth Public Schools, and we want them to feel that. We want them to feel important. We get them their internet access right away. We try and get them as much of their pre-employment trainings as we can on that first day. And then we're working on setting up kind of a first week focus for them, where their first week, they have someone they can go to, right? We try and make those introductions of someone who's extreme, that they can go. Everyone needs a go-to person, and new staff for sure. We set up technology and make sure there's clear expectations of what their job is and what their role is. And then we're looking at 30 to 60 to 90-day check-ins, checking in 30 days. How's it going? What's going on? That way, if there's something that seems off, we can address it and try and get that fixed, just to help the retention piece. For staff, we want to get them through those first 30, 60, 90 days and provide those resources that they need. With that, we've found that staff have professional development opportunities. With our professional development coordinator, Annie Schilling, has done a great job since she started at looking at what does professional development look for all of our employees? What can that look like for our bus helpers and our bus drivers in transportation, as well as our special education teachers, to our paras, to our district office staff? What do they need that will help them in their job? What can they leave with and put in the classroom or put in front of students right away to help become a better student experience? And then we do have a couple employee well-being incentives. We have a Calm incentive as well, that using the company Calm, it's just able for employees to reach out, as well as our EAP. Just if there's some mental health stuff going on, or they have an issue, it could be anything from like a mortgage. How do I buy a house? There's ways that we can support our employees through these well-being initiatives to help them become successful.
So when we look at how we bring people into the organization and what they're seeing, we've talked before about how do we brand our organization and how do people know about us. And Charlie talked about we're getting out in the community more, we're doing the job fairs, but we're advertising on the diverse platforms. But we're also trying to look at our application system and how disruptive it is sometimes to apply for a job if you aren't an educator, because there's a lot of steps that maybe aren't relevant. Trying to look for some streamlined process there. And then once people do get in that step where they're being considered as an applicant, or if they're not, just making sure that there's really timely communication so that the feedback is you're not moving on, or that you're being brought for an interview. And then the interview piece, we want to try to ensure, kind of going back to that equity, that we have diverse interview panels and that our questions are really culturally responsive. So we're going to be working going forward as part of this plan to really take a better look at how are we having people sit on interviews, making sure they have some training related to biases and those type of things before they can even sit on an interview team. And then just also making sure that we are looking at questions and we're finding out about the whole employee. Because I think it's really important, regardless of what position that you're applying for, that we understand who you are as a person. And along with that, we will be starting to work with principals specifically to the culture in their schools, because sometimes it's just not the right person, or they have a very unique set that they are looking for someone that can support different initiatives, and that can vary amongst our schools, and we really want to make sure that we have the right people in the right positions at the right places. Along with that interview committee training, we do have currently a small group of district employees that are willing to sit on interviews right now. The problem we're finding is it's a very small group and we have a lot of interviews, and it's difficult to always have them present on those those panels. So we're really going to try to encourage more involvement in that, and just, at least with the bias training, get everybody kind of on the same page. And also that interview training will come along with all the things you should and shouldn't do at an interview too. So I think there's kind of a bigger piece to that, but specific to bias for sure. Making sure we have those interview questions. And then I think that follow-up, once they've interviewed and gone through the process, how are we timely communicating to them? You know, the person that's being offered the job, it's almost within the same hour that a phone call is being made, but how do the rest of them get that information? Because I've heard when I first came here that, oh, I never heard back from the district if I was going to get a job or not. No news is bad news, I guess, but we want to make sure that we're just being responsive in any way, shape, or form, so that candidates feel like they came in the system, maybe they weren't the right person, but they can apply again, and then at least they feel like we've been responsive for them. The next one, yeah. And then you'll see also in the plan, and I apologize, I failed to put numbers on here, so when I say page number 12, good luck, but it's the second one from the back. We have a very specific section in here related to supporting our American Indian staff, and that, because we recognize that there's unique needs of that staff, and it also helps to support the specific goals that have been requested by APAC and that community. So we really want to commit to making sure that we are making some formal partnerships with the tribal bands. We have done some targeted outreach to some places, ICO and other events that we've been part of, but we are going to make more of a concerted effort to make sure we get in those places and what do they need from us and how can we help support them. And that also goes back to making sure we have some culturally responsive interview questions and kind of getting a feel from those communities, how do we help support you in the way that you want to be supported, not how we think you want to be supported. So we really want to make sure that we have those good relationships with them. Also looking, and you'll see in the plan, about the mentorship piece, and Charlie touched on that a little bit, but wanting to make sure that not only our teaching staff, who already have a pretty robust mentoring program in place, that we have those things available and in place for all employees, and as well and specifically to those that are American Indian, and making sure that we really have efforts that are targeted specifically towards them. And then we also have in that part a very clear how do they file a complaint if they feel that there's a complaint warranted. Great. So the next part is how do we measure our success? So you'll see in the plan, page 8, where we have talked about some of the metrics that we plan to measure. And some of these will be a little tricky, and I just want to walk through them really briefly. Retention rates, that's an easy measurement, and we've been doing some of the data analysis because we haven't really measured anything at this point, but I have some of the data that I can share at a future meeting or even send out. Typically, that's an indicator of employee stability. Now, we understand we hire a lot of people, and a lot of people leave, especially in our supporting role positions. And so those numbers aren't necessarily the end-all be-all reflective we're a good organization or we're not a good organization. So we have to take some of those things in context. But looking at our employee evaluations, we're working to get a new system put in place for all of our non-certified staff, as well as a new program for our certified staff so that it's easier to do those evaluations, so that employees have the feedback that they're looking for from their supervisors and their principals, to making sure that those are completed, because that's a big part of keeping and retaining an employee. They feel valued, they have that ability to communicate with their leadership, even if it's only the one time a year. So we're hoping that we can build that a little bit stronger. Looking for the number of candidates that are applying to each of our positions. As we said before, how do we become an employer of choice in this environment and in this city? We're a great and large employer in this area, and a lot of people still don't know that. So how do we push that out? You probably know last year we did a series of videos on our different positions and tried to really push them out. We're still doing some commercials for some of those hard to fill positions, just to get our name out there, as we don't just employ teachers, we employ all kinds of staff, and we want you to come work for us. So that is a really good indicator of how that is working. Employee attendance rates, and that seems like a really strange one, but it really speaks to the culture and climate and retention that we would be looking for. If we are having a lot of people taking leave without pay or lots of sick leave, and on a year when there's a lot of sickness going around, it's all relative. However, you start looking at some of those patterns and you think, is there a reason that they're not coming to work that's other than just they're not feeling well? And those are some indicators that we can look at as a piece. And then, as Charlie talked about, the data that we provided you, how do we make sure that our students have someone that they feel connected to that is like them? And so kind of looking at that data on a quarterly basis to kind of see, do we have to shift our recruitment efforts? Are we getting to the candidates that we need to get to in order to bring them forward? So moving forward together, we have this plan. It's in draft form. We hope to finalize it in the near future. I do have a presentation to the EAC later this week and also later this month, one for the APAC committee to get their feedback on it as well. I have asked Sheila White also and the senior leadership to review this, and also we'll be sending it out to our cabinet team for any feedback for that as well. And then our HR team also looking at it from kind of a lens of that employee, just to make sure that we haven't missed any of the pieces that we believe should be part of this plan before we put it forward as and again, it'll be a moving document to some degree because we will have to pivot at some point. If our measures don't really show data that's helpful, we might have to make some adjustments there. And of course, we will continue to look for more collaboration with stakeholders, to different job events, to how do we get ourselves out in the community, and how does that help us get strong, diverse, and supportive workforce to come be employees at the school district. Any questions?
Chair Derek Eater.
So at Scholastica, we're trying to do the same thing, right? Recruit a workforce that looks like the students that we're teaching. So we have had some of the same challenges, right? We have a program called Search Advocate where we have trained members of our community to start the search process by looking at the job description and then walking all the way through with the committee till the hiring process. And I'm sure you've seen the same thing. You have the same group of individuals that do that work, and it's difficult to expand it so that you can serve all the searches that you need to do to keep an organization running. So we've seen some of the same things. We have the Search Advocate program that we've had. We've seen that success, and it's helped us quite a bit, but it's just scaling it up so that you can make sure the searches run quickly on time. And so we've sort of had that same thing. And I'd be happy with some of the bias training and some of the things that we have. If you'd like to take a peek at it, I would love to share that with you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Banks?
So first question, are you amenable to suggestions?
Of course, that's
Okay.
why we're here.
All right. So I've done a lot of research based on all of the information tonight. If you could explain further, what is National Diversity Network? I looked at their website a little bit, but could you talk a little bit more about that as one of the recruiting places or places where you put job announcements or what have you?
Yes, so the National Diversity Network actually has several, and I don't know them off the top of my head, that it's a one-stop shop, if you will, for that. You put your job posting on there, and then it pushes out to their partner sites. We don't necessarily pick which site it goes to. It just goes into that pool, and then they push it out. We also are working with another agency that actually pulls off of our website as well, and then they push it out to another completely different network. So we have it kind of covered in multiple places.
Second question, is it possible for you to do specific outreach with our HBCUs, with teacher education programs that many of them are of the highest quality? And in our conversation, your presentation, you mentioned high-quality teachers and staff. There are at least 75 different academic teacher education programs in some of these HBCUs that are some of the top in the nation. So I'd like to throw that out there as something to suggest. And then are you in communication at all with the councils? The ethnic councils there's like 4 of them. They're the quasi-governmental entities that were established in 1963 1963 through 1985 by the Minnesota Legislature. Council for Minnesotans of African Heritage is one. The Minnesota Indian Affairs Council, the Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs, and then the Council on Asian Pacific Americans. I think they may all be a resource or could certainly help in many ways in recruiting and sharing job announcements, et cetera.
Yes, excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Member Lowfoot?
While those questions percolate, so thank you. I mean, this was, I really appreciate what we always get before us in the committee of the whole, because I mean, and I hope our community will listen and value what they hear. The three presentations tonight all kind of showcase how deep we have to go within our district to make sure that all systems are improving, that all are advancing equity, that all are serving the needs of our students. It's not just our teachers in the classroom, which I think is what people think. And so as we're working at realignment and reductions, it's really important that we keep our systems healthy. I don't think, I really appreciate the knowledge about human resource. We get a report every month, but we often don't have this chance to really highlight all the different avenues that you and your team have been working on. Same thing with when we think about Shalon's, right? So work and attendance is also so important to our district, but it helps in our classrooms, but it's not, looking specifically at our instructional people. And so I just really appreciate that and know that, hope that our community sees that it takes all of us to make this. We do want Duluth Public Schools to be the district of choice, not just for workers within offices here, but also for our families to bring their students because we're there. And I have heard from the moment you arrived in our district, I mean, we had that big celebration where we knew we had all staff for the first time in many years in the fall. We had every staff position filled, and that was a big, but I work too, and just all of the different stipends, whether it's the speech judges that I hire every week, and they're getting their checks a lot easier and a lot quicker than they were, 8 years ago or so. So I just think systems are really important. So I thank you so much for the work, and I know that there's lots that you want to do, and there's more to do. And I thank Charlie too for coming, especially with an education background. You see things that your department can move forward on. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. And I also want to take the time to say thank you to the team as well. And as Executive Director Severance indicated, that there will be presentations provided at EAC this coming Thursday, as well as APAC at a date to be determined. So we are making sure that we are connecting with all of the different segments of our community, and especially our families, to get their perspectives on things they might be aware of that might help us with the recruitment of staff, as well as the retention of staff of color. So thank you. Superintendent Magus.
I'm not just jumping in to say thank you as well, but thank you. Highly respect the work that's being done, and I think that this exemplifies that we are still holding true to our commitment to advancing equity. I know that there are sometimes some changes on the horizon as far as what diverse hiring means, and we believe that having a staff that mirrors to the degree possible our students is a positive thing. So we're trying to make sure that we are always seeking ways to diversify our staff and ensure that we have staff that represents our students and is also incredibly high quality staff that we have. And I want to thank you for that work, and we'll continue to navigate during those interesting times before us.
Thank you. Next up, we have our Executive Director of Business Services and other things as well. And shenanigans. Simone Zunich, she will be providing a verbal update related to our budget at this point in time and some staff information that she's ready to present her along with our very own superintendent. So I'll turn it over to both of them.
Good evening. We wanted to present some more detailed information related to our budget reductions. We know that we've had a number of different questions on a number of different things, and I think making sure that you as board members are well informed as far as that information, as well as our decision-making process, as well as the public as well. So some of the information we're sharing tonight, we shared with a few key stakeholders internally, but we will also be sharing with all staff tomorrow, and then be sharing over the weekend with our families as well. So I'll pull up a document for us, if you don't mind, which is the budget reduction realignment information document that I sent earlier tonight to you as board members. I'm going to try and make it a little bigger. So this first document, or the first tab, I should say, on the, I keep on wanting to call them slides, but they are, of course, tabs. But the first tab on the budget reduction realignment sheet has information on number of staff by unit, and by unit I mean by usually by bargaining unit over time. There are also some individual contracted positions like my contract, senior leader contracts, and the communication contracts that we have here. And I think if you see this is something that we've been asked for a number of times through the budget reduction process, because I think that there's assumption that there's maybe been just really significant district office bloat, so to speak, or administrative bloat, and I just wanted to share this longitudinal information to dispel some of that, or at least provide greater clarity of where the changes are. So you can see from the tabs, there are if you go down in column 1, there are all the different units, and some of them are different in nature in the way that they're named, like the Duluth District-Wide Instructional Administrator Association. DWIA is what we refer to them as. Those are sort of the coordinator level type positions in general. But then the Executive Employees Association, that is actually some of the manager positions, but it was also the executive assistants that we have. And along the way if you look between 23 and 24, there's a significant jump in the Executive Employee Association and a big reduction in the Clerical Association. That's because those two groups combined. But beyond that, what I wanted to show you is if you look at some of the pre-COVID numbers, that would be column F, which would be, well, that's a couple weeks into COVID, but column F, when a couple weeks after you hired me, actually, is where the numbers were with paraprofessionals, food service, all the different categories. You also, as you get down near the bottom, you see number of principals, number of teachers, you see number of directors, and then the individual contracts, which are myself, the senior leadership team, and then our communications officer contracts. If you look, and I'm going to go down that row a little bit. If you look at the director positions there were some changes in the directorship. So there were the different director numbers there, but we were up a director for a brief period of time because we increased, and that's when we made the split, and we added a director of elementary and director of secondary. We took a curriculum director position and split it into two, one for elementary and one for secondary. But then with the elimination or there was a pause this year in the hiring of the director of assessment, and we're not continuing that next year. So there's a reduction from 5 directors to 4 directors to 4 directors. And then for the individual contracts, my contract, senior leadership, and communications, you see I can't really say much about the years well before I was here, but you can see that we had 5 positions, 5 positions in 21. That is when we switched over and we created a human resources director position from manager. You see in April of '22, we have 6. That's because there was overlap because that was when our former communications officer was here and when we hired Adele in the new communications officer position. Because Katie Kaufman had been here for years and years, she had many months of vacation time to cash out, so she was on the payroll for several months after we hired Adele, and also to have some overlap as needed. But you can see that number has remained relatively consistent. If you look at our principals, you'll see too that it was in the low 20s, has remained in the low 20s. There was a little bit of an increase over the COVID time period, and then you see a decrease down to 23 for next year. That final column is where we assume we'll be after all of our budget reductions. If you look at paraprofessionals up on top, you see we were in the high 200s, 300-ish range. We had a hard time recruiting and such during COVID, but then we've managed to climb back up a bit. But there is some reduction for next year, but proportionally, it's not. We're still at a place higher than we were pre-COVID. And then if you look at the teachers, for instance, you'll see that they were around 729 in pre-COVID. And then we reached up into the 800s, and we're remaining in the 800s for the fall. So we're actually have significantly more teachers next fall than we do in other categories. So I just wanted to share this information because it kind of lays a little bit more picture when we're talking about like, oh, where are all of these administrators? That's something that we wanted to clarify. Also, sometimes you've heard about different expenditures, and I am going to click on this last tab, which is the general fund expenditures. It lays out all of our general fund expenditures, which can be found on the MDE website. But really, you might be hearing, oh, we have this huge increase in the amount we're spending in administration, and that's, if you want to explain that in a little bit.
So John, if you want, excuse me, Superintendent, would you please there? So we provided a snapshot of 2020. The district level, we'll just address that one line, the district level administration. The state and local expenditures were $5.6 million. As you'll see, there were no federal expenses. We didn't have ESSER at that time. So would you please, and so to the far right, the expenditure percentage was 5.8. Then we provided a snapshot of 2024. As you can see, the expenditures went to 8.03%. Well, if you look under federal on the first line, there's $2,045,947. That is ESSER expenditures. That is where the UFARs had us park our technology expenditures. So it looks skewed, but it is technology. And Superintendent, would you click on the ESSER expenditure tab to the left? I'm just going to address this, and then go to the far right to the FY24. So right there, it shows you we've spent $9.4 million in ESSER, but if you look under Finance 160, the 108 tech services of $1.7 million, plus the 110 business services, $331, and down below Finance 161, Program 108 of $255,723. Those three numbers equal the 2,045 that are on that MDE website.
2,000?
Excuse me, 2 million. So
part of the reason why we wanted to explain this is just so that you could see, where are some of those reductions? Because I think you're fielding a lot of questions about why haven't we reduced by our areas, and we have, and I'm not meaning this as a tit for tat piece. It's just that we know questions are out there, and we want to make sure that we're clear for the public, and we also want to make sure that we inform our staff really well on this, and that we let our public know as well. So those are some of the areas that are different and outlined there. So there wasn't a vast, the increase in administrative expenditure during my tenure was mostly Chromebooks. That's where most of that is and mental health supports and supports that we had in place during COVID. I think it is interesting to note the this other tab, the financial year 2025 and 2026, the planned reductions. The planned reductions are focused on what is it that we've identified this year for reduction, and then what will be reduction for next year. And Simone, if you want to lead us through that.
Sure. The first line, it has come up about the Director of Assessment and Climate Coordinator. Those were unfilled budgeted positions this year. We had an unfilled budgeted accounting supervisor in finance. The superintendent reduced the elementary setting 4 program this year. We have, this is ongoing, this is payroll, the reduction of overtime and overloads. Director Severance is really working at reviewing the overloads and overtime through a spreadsheet every pay period now. So we're having some really good oversight there. Our benefits right now, and remember I do the budget last April and May, so I'm showing a 4% decrease right now. So I think we're going to have a 1.3 million less in actual spending. So that's why I put the 1.3 million there. We are doing non-renewal of general fund contracts this year. We've had various contracts that we're just not renewing. And they come to the desk. They're not related to a restricted fund or a department. These are general fund contracts. And then working with the TLE directors, we reduced supply budgets this year. And so that was very helpful, thank you. And we're doing a good oversight of reduction of travel, unless it's tied to a department or a restricted fund or a grant. We've brought our travel down. So our target was 2.6. You know, this is ongoing. A lot will happen with the audit. So that's our target right now. And then going over to FY26, our target was 5 million. As you see, we got to 4.9. We will continue to do a very close overwatch of our spending. Right now, we're at 48.32 FTE. And with the calculation of their benefits, we came to 3.8 million. Next year, the assistant superintendent will not be bringing in a director of assessment and climate coordinator, so we're counting those. Again, we're also reduction of low enrollment courses based on student selection. That's part of the registration process, still somewhat ongoing. Reduction of overtime and overloads, that is going to be an ongoing yearly process for us. Reduction of stipends. I'm anticipating a 5% overall reduction in, I can get really technical, object codes 185 and 186. Purchase services reductions, I'm going to be planning for a 5% overall reduction there. We're just going to have to really discuss every contract that comes across our desk. If it is tied to a grant or particular department that gets their own funding from MD, that's a different story, but these are all general fund contracts. Reduction of supply budgets, we're reducing again another $75,000. That's a 10% overall reduction then. Reduction of travel, I've bumped that up a little bit more now to 45,000, which is 10% unless it's paid by a grant. And other reductions to be determined. We're still looking for those reductions, but I think we did a good job of trying to get close to that $5 million. Any questions?
Actually, just a couple more comments quick, if I could. Some things that are new as of this meeting that were not really part of previous conversation. Okay, sorry. I thought one of our vans slid down the hill or something, I wasn't sure. A couple of changes that we've had that are new to you to some extent. and they were part of my information that I've shared with you through other communications, is with the media specialists. We had provided we had a reduction of our media specialists at both the middle and high school level, and we had added paraprofessional time to make sure that the media centers could remain open. We recognize that's not the same as a trained media specialist. We recognize that that's a stopgap piece, and it's a sacrifice that we're making as a district. But we were not, as of our last meeting, we weren't going to have a paraprofessional splitting their time at the high school level, partly because of the circulation being really down with our high school students, so they weren't checking out nearly as many books, and so that was part of it. But then we heard from and it's not to say that you come to a listening session and you vocalize things and we're going to give in to it, but we do listen and we do think about things and we think about what can we do, and we decided that we are going to add paraprofessional support at the high school as well so that the media centers can remain open. And again, I know that might be still might be seen as a discrediting of the great work that's done by trained library media specialists, but we still think it's important to have that space open too at the high school as a space for our students. So that is new and different. So there's a cost there involved of about $50,000. But then we also talked a lot about the change in there were two TOSA positions at the high school, at each of the high schools. Each high school had a TOSA, teacher on special assignment athletic director, and a teacher on special assignment dean. Both of those positions were, at each of the two sites, were displaced. Sorry, I knew the D word, but I was trying to think of which, the correct term. They were both displaced, and the assumption was that we're going to be creating an additional assistant principal position there at each of the schools. We do feel that we had managerial rights that we could do that, but we also felt that we would rather pursue things through the labor management process and work on things during the contract negotiations, but actually quite likely looking at maybe pursuing a memorandum of understanding or something prior. So something that we will be still moving ahead with change in the athletic directors, but not for this next school year. So that does save us a little bit of money there too. It also decreases the number of administrators that we have on paper that you saw on our staffing numbers for September 25. So those are some of the bigger changes that we've had since we've last met. I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to share, or Mr. Bonds, anything you'd like to share?
Not at this time. I guess we can field questions unless you want to say something else, and then we can add more as we go.
Yeah, one other thing I'd like to say, I know that there was a question out there, did we make any reductions in sports, the athletics and activities piece? And that was asked by a board member, and I didn't get a chance to answer it individually, but I figured I'd just bring it up here as a question. When we met with our students and families, that was one of the things that they said, please don't reduce our clubs, don't reduce our sports, don't reduce our activities. So we tried to avoid that area. That's not to say that in future rounds of budget reduction that will need to be identified, because you hear quite often in other districts, sometimes if there's budget reduction, they eliminate a couple of sports or they eliminate different clubs. And we're trying to focus on student engagement right now, and so we recognize that one of the mechanisms for student engagement is some of those activities and clubs and sports, but we also don't want it to feel like it's a sacred cow that can't ever be recognized and looked into. So that's something I would address. But we've shared a lot of information here, and again, to let people know, these are questions that have been asked, and so we wanted to make sure that we put this information together and we spent most of the afternoon today working on it, and we plan to share it with our staff tomorrow, and then we plan to share, we would be sharing all 4 tabs with staff because they might have questions about all 4 tabs, but we would be sharing more of a narrative summary of the staffing numbers tab and the financial year 25-26 planned reductions tabs so that our students or our families can get a better understanding of where we're at.
Thank you. And just point of clarification, for next year, we are not planning on eliminating any sports or reducing any sports, but that doesn't mean in the future, for future budgets, that might not be a consideration. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. So I don't want our families to worry that sports will be impacted for next year. Member Banks?
Sure. And this is for clarification too. On the line item food service, can you help me understand that a little bit more? Because it seems like over time, that department has been significantly impacted. Would there ever be any time for consideration to do something more there with the increase in population of students? Or is that going to be what that's going to look like?
I'd like to, sorry. Executive Director Severance, where are we at with the food service hiring? Do we have any open positions? Thank you. We'll look right now for you. I will tell you that Sheila Oak, our new food nutrition supervisor, is really good. And she makes it work. We recognize that she is sometimes short-staffed. And facing the same issues that we are in transportation too. We have increased sick leave right now. And so she makes it work. And we've improved our software, so we've improved our systems. We purchased a new software last year, and that's fully implemented right now. And of course, we have increased students going through the line because we have free meals. Right. And that will hopefully continue for at least 2 more years, if not more. I have to see what did it.
Yeah, we currently have 3 openings.
3 openings.
All at Lincoln Park, interestingly enough.
Yeah. So they do the best they can and they make it work.
I think we've seen certain patterns in certain areas with bus drivers, food service, paraprofessionals, and maintenance, where we've had a hard time filling, particularly the building engineer cleaning positions. Those have been hard to fill. But as we heard from Executive Director Severance, we are continuing to do a lot of things with recruiting, including advertising. And I don't watch a lot of TV, but I had it on last night, and I saw Duluth Public Schools advertisement for employment, and I dragged some people into the room for a minute to see it.
Member Sadowski, and then Chair Derek Eater.
I just can't help reflect at this meeting after hearing, about our computer science programs and just how media specialists can teach that foundational computer science and more. Not a question, just I'm really hoping that we're thinking ahead, as we're building this computer science program, and our media specialists can be, doing some of that educating. We're building the program. I'm hearing that it might grow, that we might add classes. Meanwhile, we're having to cut. And then I heard at public comment just from students, a handful, that they really like, their media specialists, which is great. But I just hope that we're thinking a few steps ahead on this, given the intersection of these 2 things.
I just want to take a minute because I understand and appreciate the keen eye that everybody keeps on the district, especially when it comes to the number of administrators that we employ here. And sort of where my thinking goes in support of the way that we have the district structured right now is that we have a tremendous amount of strain on the district when it comes to new mandates that we have to follow, and great things like the READ Act, where we're thinking differently about how we teach students, and constant changes in curriculum that come down from the state and the national level. And then to Member Sadowski's point, improving what we offer our students when it comes to computer science and career and technical physical education. And currently, as we know, teachers have an increased strain and an increased amount of work that they're required to do every day when it comes to just teaching the students in front of them. So I just want to lend my support to the structure where we have a layer of administrators that are there to help lead the district through curriculum changes that can help our teachers and support our teachers in the classrooms with the curriculum that they're teaching, being in our schools when we have emergencies or when we have issues that need to be addressed, is that we have administrators presence that can go out to those places. So I do appreciate that at times people want to look at administration and say, well, this administrative bloat, and if they would just cut out this administrative bloat. And if we don't have administrators at the levels like our secondary and our primary curriculum directors, we don't have the capacity to make the changes that we need to, that the state requires. We don't have a capacity with our teachers to be able to do that work outside of their core instruction time. So I do just want to lift up and support the structure that we have thoughtfully built in this district to make sure that we have the teachers that we need in front of the students, and then also that backdoor support here in this building and several other buildings across the district that are there to support teachers to do the very important work that we need them to do. So I just want to take a minute and it's always, I was a teacher, now I'm an administrator. It's always fun to kick on our administrators a little bit, but I just want to take a moment and say that I believe that this school board is supportive of the structure that has been built in this district. We've seen some gains in some of our reading, some of our math. We're starting to see those gains. These are going to take time. And those gains, I think you can, not directly because correlation isn't causation, but we can say that the structure that we're building here is helping make improvements in our students' experiences in the district. So thank you for that.
Member Lawford?
Well, I'd love to say that Chair Eater just took the words out of my mouth, but she said it much better and probably true. And that actually is a little bit tied to my first comment when we have had these presentations tonight. It shows the depth of what this district needs to be successful and to be the district we want to be, the employer we want to be, the attractor that we want to be. And so we need these systems. We need our leaders and the people that they work with to continue to move this district forward. And that's what I've seen too, is that because we have strong administrative leads, we can do the next steps of accountability, of mentoring, of shepherding our principals and all of that together too. So with that, I've probably lost what I was going to say. So a couple of things with, I don't know if this is true, Member Banks, with our questions in like food service, but I don't think we're cutting in food service. The fact that we have 59 and in food service in 2016 we had 76, it just means that we're kind of not necessarily short-staffed, but we're not cutting. Those declining numbers aren't because we've been consciously reducing what we hire. It's that we're not able to hire what we need. Would I be right in that assumption? Okay, and that's probably true even in some of those areas that go. But the one that kind of caught my eye that is the teachers. So in March of right now of 823, so that we're in 800 next fall due to retirements, due to some staff reductions, but probably not all, not 23 all teachers that we're reducing with our realignment and our reductions. It's somewhat maybe half and half, 15 retirees that we're predicting, and maybe a little bit more of the reductions in teaching staff. Would that be?
I would say many of those are through displacement, and some of them are reductions. And at the same time, I would say that I'm proud to say that we are placing value on the teachers, and you see that even though most of the other numbers from 2020 to now remain, there was a spike in most areas through COVID because we had extra money to hire. You'll see that most of our numbers are pretty level for administrators and other positions, but the teachers, because we invest in our teachers, we believe in our teachers, we have 70 more teachers than we did pre-COVID, and so even in the fall. So I think that that's part of what we want to remember. It's a time of sacrifice. It's a hard time. I don't mean to diminish how it feels. I had been displaced and laid off myself. It's not something we want for anybody. And we continue to invest in our teachers because they are the first wave of support for our students, and we believe they make the biggest impact on the system. So that's why these numbers are reflected in this way.
And I appreciate you sharing that because not only is it our teachers, it's our parents. So not only do we invest in our teachers to provide additional support for students, many of those teacher positions that you see here as increases were students with special need teachers. So as a district, we've increased the amount of programming for our students with special needs. Our district have more students every year who are added to our count for needing special needs, special education. So that means more settings for those students. So we've increased the number of settings that are needed for our students. So across our district, we have more setting 3 classroom, more resource rooms. Those resource rooms have qualified teachers in them as well as paras. So that's why you'll see the increase in paras. So as special ed teacher resource rooms go up, paras are also added to those classrooms. And then we also have a number of individuals in the para unit who are supporting the building in a variety of ways. We have our Check and Connect. Some of those individuals are paras. We have other para positions who are providing social emotional learning for students and so forth. So those were other investments we made because we knew students were and still have challenges with trauma and just ongoing challenges with social emotional needs being unmet. And so investments have been made, and this demonstrate that we have been really focused on providing those needs and resources. And yes, it does require behind the scenes people to really focus on those individuals to support those additional staff. So there were increases in some spaces for leadership support that we really needed. So I'll stop there. So thank you for that support. Any other questions? Member Mikesell.
Thank you for all this information and for some of the transparency here. I'm wondering if you can repeat yourself, and I apologize, but I figure if I missed something, then, and I have a little bit of a understanding of this that others may have as well. When you were talking about the general fund expenditures pre-COVID and now 2024, and you were going back and forth between the spending that we did with ESSER funds along the level of district level administration and talking, can you please repeat yourself so I can better understand where those differences are? And that I think what you were attempting to convey is that it's not as much of an increase as what it appears on this document. And I was hoping that you could just do that, dumb it down a little bit more for me.
This part where we're talking about the $2 million in ESSER funding. Yeah.
Okay, so Superintendent, would you go back up to that blue box?
I would love to.
Thank you. So it has come up to our attention that there's been district level increase in spending, and we wanted to show that back in 2020, we did not have any federal funds that flowed through the district administrative fund budget. And the way UFARS is set up, our technology runs through Program 108, which falls under, it's called district administration. But if you look further into the definition, it says technology services. So it gets highlighted as district admin, but it's also called tech services. And so we provided this, looking at the expenditures from MDE's data center. You can see that in 2020, the district level administration line item, the percentage is 5.18%. If you look under the federal column in 2020, you'll see $0 were used. This is because there was no ESSER funding in 2020. Okay, now when you look over to the 2024 tab, you'll see that the district level administration, so that's 2020. If you go over to the 24, just last year, to the far right, You can see the district level administration, the percentage went up to 8.03. Well, you'll see under federal, we spent $2,045,000. And what I did is under the ESSER expenditure tab, I went back to the last 4 years, broke it down by finance code and program code to show you where all of our ESSER expenditures were. It's over $34 million. So that is why that percentage went up like that. If you take the federal dollars out of there, the general fund expenditures are at 6.6%, so it went from 5 to 6.6. So it really didn't go up that far. But with our federal ESSER dollars, everything looks much more increased.
So we've had a lot of I would question this too if I saw this. And I think people are saying like, oh my gosh, Magus inflated the district administrative costs by 40% during his tenure. What did that mean? Like, where are all these? And I was thinking like, where are all the people that I hired? Because I don't see them. But really what it is that we weren't a one-to-one district. Most districts during COVID already had their computers. We didn't have our computers, and we spent a lot of our COVID money buying computers, and it went through the district what is the name of the
District admin
district
level.
level administration. That's how it's coded, and we've explained that a few times and more. You've been in meetings as board members, representative in some of our labor management meetings. We've explained it many times, and it is complicated, so we want to make sure that we're explaining it again. And sometimes it seems that we reach a point of shared understanding, and then it's put back out there, how come you increased administrative costs by 40% or 35%? But I think we wanted to figure out how can we say this and show this in like a clearer way. And I still, because it's still confusing, it's not a perfect explanation, but I think that's what we're trying to do is show through this and through that staffing numbers slide that there hasn't been a huge inflation of district administration. And that's not what the purpose of tonight's information is really to answer questions and to show where the reductions are. And we're probably highlighting some of the things that we see as questions that are being brought to us, sometimes through you, but also through other stakeholders. And so we wanted to make sure that we had this as points of clarification. It's not like we're stomping our feet and adding new information because we're trying to prove our point. It's just that we know the questions are out there and we're trying to bring clarity.
Member Mike, so I know you had those questions. I can't see your mic. All good now? Okay, just want to make sure. Member Lowfoot?
So I just want to support Superintendent Magus in looking at that 8% because we had Mike Holshire. Didn't he come and present this to us when we were still, Holheiser?
Yes.
Came and presented this to us when we were still in the United Healthcare's facility. I just remember him specifically standing up and showing us where, if you dig down into that, you'll see that the charge for our Chromebooks went into this fund level, which then made it look like we were top-heavy in district. So it's been haunting us since then as far as that. But, it is what it is, and school finance is complicated, and in that lies all of the open, you have an open target to be suspicious because, and we say that it's technical. I've heard legislators say they wish that school finance was a little bit easier to understand, and these are the senators and legislators sitting on the Finance Committee for Education, and they find it confusing. It's a little unnerving sometimes, but then we have an ally at the Department of Minnesota with Kathy Erickson, and she can bring, a lot of clarity as Simone does. So just wanted to support that same caveat about that's the explanation, and we hope that our public can see this as not something that we're trying to, say it differently.
Thank you. Superintendent, do you want to share how we plan on sharing this information at our next upcoming QOTs, as well as information we might be sharing with staff regarding this information that we hope will at least, be informative for staff?
So how are we sharing this? So we will be, I'm working with our communications officer on, Adele Wellens, on putting together narrative that will be shared with families and other stakeholders over the weekend, just because sending out a chart like this is going to be kind of seen as, some might be interested, and we could have a link to it if people are interested in looking at it a little deeper. But we did want to share this information directly with our staff and have some narrative with it. So just kind of a high-level overview of, hey, we've got some questions. Here's our chart with these different tabs. Tab number 1 talks about, the historic number of staff over time. Tab number 2 looks at our reductions for 25-26. Tab number 3 is our ESSER expenditures, and tab number 4 is basically an explanation of why we had a perception and a reality of a line item increase under district level administration, but it isn't district level administration, it was Chromebooks.
Thank you. Anything else, Executive Director Zunich?
No, thank you. I appreciate your time.
As we come to a close, I'm going to put in a plug for, once again, we do have a press conference at 2 p.m. on Thursday related to the Duluth Promise, and board members are invited to attend. It was going to be at the chamber, but the number of attendees has grown significantly, so we'll be holding it right here in our school board room. And that is an example, too, of where we're seeking additional resource, where we have bills with both the Senate and the House seeking additional funds to help support that programming. We have Member Lofold and I testified last week at the Senate Finance Committee seeking $3 million in kind of repayment for some funding issues that we had with special education. So we are very often back and forth in the springtime, especially during this budget year, very often back and forth between here and the Capitol. I hate being gone, and I feel guilty being gone, but if we're getting extra millions potentially for our students, that's something that we are also trying to do to remedy the budget situation, as well as, and I'm looking at Director Larva and Director Sparts, who are out there writing grants for MTSS specialists, and we have Principal on Special Assignment SIBO, who received hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from the FAA for aviation mechanics programming, and there are many, many things that we're sharing. So those are things that we wanted to highlight, that we don't just rest on the money that we get from the state. We're out there actively shaking the proverbial tree, trying to get more resources for our students.
Don't forget our enrollment campaign.
Ooh, yes. The enrollment campaign that Communications Officer Wellens and others are working on. We have had we're having a continued increase in enrollment, and several of the enrollees are specifically because of the school mint campaign. Last time I knew that we were up to 3, and it had just started, but 3 more than pays for the program, and we'll have many, many more, I'm sure, in the coming months. You've seen an increase in the different traffic as far as the advertisements that we have out there. It's something we're doing to make sure that every student we bring in, it's thousands of dollars that are resourced to our community.
Thank you. Chair, that concludes our COW agenda for this evening.
Thank you.